Hi, good evening and welcome to another edition of Football 360 here on Varsat 1. My name is Daniel Oduro and I'm sitting in for your regular host, Nutifafa Ata. Today, the English Premier League is big on the show and I'm sure you've got interest in it because there are 3 Ghanaian players who made their appearances for their various clubs. There was one who was supposed to make an appearance that could not make it because of injury. We'll also talk about the Ghana Premier League as it gets to the home stretch. Would Heart of Oak survive the relegation dogfight? And would Heart of Lions be able to survive as well? Ash Gold look likely to win their first Premier League title in 20 years. And they are leading by 3 points as the league gets to the final home stretch. We'll also talk about the Black Stars and the reports that the Ministry of Youth and Sports is planning to slash the winning bonus of the national team from $10,000 to $5,000. I'm sure you've got views on it. Send us to our Twitter handle and our Facebook handle. You can also tweet me personally at Daniel_Oduro. I've got my guests to do the discussion on the show, and to my immediate right is Veronica Commey, who works with the GNA, and Thierry Nyann, who is the host of sports on this network. Guys, you're welcome to the show.
Thanks.
It's been a wonderful weekend. The EPL is back and everybody is happy.
Sure.
But let's talk about the top 4, the big clubs: Arsenal, Manchester United, Manchester City, and obviously the defending champions, Chelsea. Chelsea stumbled in their pursuit to defend the title, but against Swansea, where Andrea, you got on the score sheet. What do you make of the performance, Thierry, of the big boys or the top teams in the top 4 in terms of the clubs that finished top 4 last season?
Well, clearly, from the results and from the performances that I saw, yesterday and today, it clearly told you one thing, that the Premier League is one of the most difficult to win. As Jose Mourinho said, I remember when Crystal Palace secured the services of, Johan Cabaye from Paris Saint-Germain. He says that, if you look at how some of these so-called smaller teams, are, purchasing players. I mean, today we saw, Stoke City parading very, very good players against Liverpool, the likes of Ibrahim Afellay, Diouf, all in there. It tells you one thing, that the Premier League is very difficult. I mean, Manchester United needed an own goal to win. Chelsea, drew against Swansea. You're looking at an Arsenal side that actually lost at the Emirates against West Ham United. I'm sorry to say that, Veronica. You look at all these results, and it tells you just one thing. Yes, the Premier League is back, but yeah, it's back with a bang, because all the other teams, the teams I do not fancy to be getting 3 points, especially against the bigger clubs, are actually very much up there. They really have protected themselves. They have secured services of good players who know how to get results in big games. And we saw that in Swansea versus Chelsea, where the likes of Dede Ayew and Gomez were really, really pivotal to the points that Gary Monk's Chargers won at at Stamford Bridge. Okay,
Veronica, what do you make of the opening day fixtures, and what will be your surprise result for the weekend?
One look, and I'm thinking that we are in for a very interesting season, because you can already say that Chelsea looks like the team to win the Premiership. Forget how they performed yesterday. But if you look at the kind of performance Swansea put up yesterday, it tells you one thing. You can't just rule out the so-called small teams, because a lot of teams seem to be very motivated. If I had that doubt, it got erased today when West Ham, after 10 years, never losing to Arsenal, would walk to the Emirates, put in the kind of performance they did, even with a 16-year-old. To have that confidence in the team tells you that a lot of teams might not change the ranking in terms of the first 4, but we would see a lot of interesting games that would justify why we are all excited that the Premier League is back. So I am expecting a very, very good season. I do not expect the top 4 standing to change. I just hope that there would be a few surprises in terms of maybe positions among United, Arsenal. I don't see how Liverpool is ending up there, despite the fact that they won at Stoke today. But I am expecting a great season, and I'm excited about it. All right.
So let's focus on the games with Ghanaian interest. Obviously, the Swansea and Chelsea game would come up. Were you surprised, Thierry, with the kind of performance that Andrea you put up? A lot of people were expecting him to do well, but did you expect him to cap a fine display with a goal against Chelsea at the Bridge?
I like the question, especially the part you added at the Bridge, because it's a very difficult ground to go to, especially for a new man in the English Premier League. How feisty the games can be, how pulsating end-to-end stuff it was yesterday. Momentarily, you could actually pick that game and say that it could contest for game of the season, because it was end-to-end stuff, especially in the first half where both teams were really at each other. I thought that when you look at Andre's performance, it was not surprising to me, because I've always looked at
contesting for the game of the season after day one.
After day one, yeah, you see, that's actually because when you look at how well both teams played, yes, it was a game of two halves. Chelsea dominating the first, Swansea dominating the second, but momentarily, that's why I added momentarily. When you look at how both teams were actually playing at each other, sometimes during the game, during that 90 minutes, it told you that they actually came in with an intent. Of course, the post-match interview with Gary Monk, he says that he wanted to showcase the talent that he had at Stamford Bridge, because he knew all eyes were going to be there, against the defending champions, against the Jose Mourinho side, which is always interesting when you come up against him as a coach. But for Andre Ayew, let me focus on him. I thought it was not a surprising performance for me. He had really shown signs of that, playing for the Black Stars, and of course playing for his boyhood club Marseille. He's a small boy, I should say, with a big heart, and it was really shown against a very good goalkeeper, Courtois. How he took the goal, his performance all round, the fighting spirit that he had in that particular game. He was at some point in the game rallying around his teammates, and for a new boy, I thought it was really very cool. It was actually surprising that some Chelsea fans forgot that they were Chelsea fans when Andre scored. They were actually jubilating. It tells you how patriotic some people can actually be. But I thought it was a very good debut for him. It couldn't have been any better at Stamford Bridge. Obviously, all eyes were going to be on you. But now all the nerves could be calmed. Now he has taken a lot of the pressure off him. And I'm sure that the next few games are going to shape exactly what we are to expect from Andre Ayew. But of course, it was a very strong performance from him.
But I doubt if he even went into that game with any nerves. The Andre I know thrives on occasion sliders. He's made a huge reputation in matches sliders. Remember Ghana, Germany at the World Cup, that goal
Ghana,
against
USA.
Neuer. I had that feeling that he was going to score, and I kept saying it. And what a way for him to begin the Premier League, because it changes everything for him. It almost indicates why Swansea wanted him that much. And for me, all the moments you saw him rallying the team is a typical Andre Ayew, is a typical thing he would do. I would have been surprised if I didn't see that. And it's a good thing for Swansea. It looks like, what a way to have the confidence to begin the season like they have had. It was a great performance for me yesterday, especially for Andre. And it's one that Jordan could look to and say that when he was at my age, it wasn't the same, or I didn't have the kind of debut I wanted with Aston Villa, but I still would want to work hard. Because if you get someone substituting you and scoring, it tells you that competition might be tight and you may want to work hard. So for the Ghanaian interest, it's a good time to be watching the Premier League.
Before we even look at Jordan Ayew, I want to make a point that I want to even ask a question, to the Ayew family. How is the family planning going? Because we need more of the Ayews. The Black Stars need more of their products.
But it was a debut that was not necessarily splendid for Jordan. Many said it was a poor game that he had. Everybody is going to compare him with his brother. How does he pick himself from here? It wasn't the best of debut performances from him. And the substitute, like Veronica said, came to score a goal. The obvious scenario is that the one who scored the goal starts the next game. How difficult is it for him to get games going forward?
The wisest thing for Jordan to do now is to know that the pressure is not on him. The pressure rather is on Tim Sherwood. And that would be the smartest thing.
But if you are bought for 12 million...
Yes,
that's a lot of money.
Obviously, the price tag comes with some pressure on its own. But I think that when you are in a team like Aston Villa, who have had great strikers, I mean, the most recent being Christian Benteke, who moved to Liverpool, you know that you have big shoes to obviously fill. Now, you did not come alone. You came with Gested. And I think that rather takes pressure off you, because there are going to be games where we are not really going to see Jordan Ayew like we did yesterday. And he needs someone to actually come save the team, so there will not be a lot of pressure on him. Now, I'm saying this for a reason. He's actually walked into a team okay, that are screaming for goal scorers.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had the likes of John Carew score for them, the likes of Gabriel Agbonlahor, who's had his his time at at Villa, still there anyway, but not really in the goal scoring acts like he used to be. They need goal scorers. They've brought in Jordan Ayew. Jordan Ayew obviously cannot do anything about the comparison with his brother in the same league.
Yeah.
Obviously cannot do anything about that. But I think it's something he's lived with before. They were in the same league, in the French League 1, last season and before that. So obviously he knows how to be in the same team with his brother when they were at Marseille, and obviously when he moved, on loan and then permanently. But I think now, a lot of people would want to talk about Gested and all, but Gested is not really your prolific striker. Yes, he scored 32 goals for Blackburn last season. But prior to that, he had played about 6 seasons with different clubs, as many clubs as possible, and he has scored just about 5-3 in a season. Yes, last season was his breakthrough season. He wants to replicate that, that goal-scoring act, at Aston Villa. It is going to be difficult. Why? Because the kind of team that he had at Blackburn is different from what he has at Aston Villa now. Aston Villa are not a team that are built for the likes of Jordan Ayew, rather for Gested, because of how Benteke used to play. Gested, for those who do not know him, is a very tall, big striker, likes to score with his head like he did yesterday.
Yeah.
He does not have a lot of footwork like Jordan Ayew has. So 2 different strikers, and obviously 2 great options that Tim Sherwood could have, to toy with throughout the whole season. There are going to be games that he would need footworks that, obviously the likes of Agbonlahor, the likes of Weimann, the likes of Jordan Ayew would give him. There are going to be games where he will need a Christian Benteke kind of striker, and I think that's exactly what,
So Jordan will get games?
Jordan definitely will get games.
Right.
You come for 12 million to a club like Aston Villa, you are not meant for the bench, trust me.
All right. Let's talk about Jeffrey Schlupp. I mean, by far the most consistent Black Stars player in the English Premier League. This is his 2nd season, won a lot of awards during the club's end of season. How vital is he to Leicester City and their ambition to, if you like, play in Europe?
He is that vital because if you see a player winning awards at the end of the season, the kind of shift Leicester puts in, and every step of the way he was in the team, it tells you that they recognize how important he is. The only people who truly may not be recognizing it is the Ghanaian fans, because he's not flashy, because he's not flamboyant, because maybe he's yet to actually seal a place in the Black Stars. But every time you have watched him at Leicester, you realize that it's not just the belief they have in him. He produces the results. He works hard, whether you are making him play in defense or he's going up front. It's that confidence that makes them able to even switch him around. And I feel that it's a season that would further project him, that may want people to begin to ask exactly why he doesn't get a lot of support like the Ayus and the Andrews would get compared to the others in the Premier League.
Is he a material for any of the top 4 sides? I mean,
Not
there were
yet.
a lot of interest.
Not yet.
You don't think?
I don't think he's there yet. He's a work in progress. He has the talent, he has the prospect, he has the potential. But it's truly about how he's able to cut it. But presently, I do not think he is there yet.
What works for him? Many have said that he's got the stature and the physique built for the English Premier League, and that's how come he's thriving. And that's how come someone like Christian Achu would struggle in the EPL. Do you think that beyond his abilities, the stature that he has plays a part in how good he's played for Leicester City over the last 2 seasons?
Well, before I even answer that question, I want to first of all comment on what Veronica said about he not being ready for some of the top clubs or the top 4 clubs. I think some of them he could actually walk into those teams.
Like who? Like Chelsea?
Obviously not. But
so like
because
which top team?
he will be facing some competition in Aspilicueta, and trust me, that is big competition. But if an English boy like Luke Shaw can start for Manchester United, I mean, with all due respect to that Englishman, but Jeffrey Schlupp can equally do the same. I mean, how different will you say they are? I mean, that's Luke Shaw, that's Jeffrey Schlupp. Jeffrey Schlupp, last season we all know how well he did for Leicester City, winning 2 club accolades. I mean, the best young player and the Players' Player of the Year. I thought were signs of how good he's been, and for a player who had not actually started his professional football as a left back, but obviously as a forward.
Yeah.
being converted to a defender obviously was a very big transition for him, but he's still been able to make it. It tells you that he's a man that can actually grind it wherever you put him. And I think when you look at even a team like Arsenal, with all due respect to Bellerin,
really?
this is a Spanish youngster that has come into the Premier League and has seen a number of games that is actually shaping him up. I think that Jeffrey Schlupp, with just a little confidence, can really do the job as a big club.
Actually, the good thing is you add something he may need, a little bit of confidence.
Obviously, every player needs a little something to improve.
We are talking about players who are ready, who will be able to cut it when you put them in the
only question. Is Bellerin ready? Is Bellerin ready?
Oh, he is ready. I feel that the potential is there.
But I don't think he plays in the same position as Bellerin. I think he would rather compete with Nacho Monreal.
Nacho Monreal and
Gibbs.
He could be better than Gibbs, but Monreal,
exactly.
I'm not sure.
But we've seen Gibbs start for us now for so many months.
That is how
in
come
different
he sits
seasons.
on the bench many times these days.
But so I mean, but I think that, I mean, again, you mentioned Christian Achu and the fact that he would actually be struggling. But for Jeffrey Schlupp, I would say that yes, the English Premier League is a bit physical.
Yeah.
It's not a league that is meant for the soft-hearted. Jeffrey Schlupp has really built himself up, physically,
and he has an advantage playing the championship,
which is actually a very, very difficult, league to play in. Some people actually say that it's actually more difficult than the Premier League. But I think that when you see someone like Jeffrey Schlupp and how he plays his football, he's not a guy that is overly aggressive in certain, contests against certain players. But he knows exactly how to read a game and how to get out of those, contests victorious. And I think that's exactly what is going to keep him in the Premier League for a long time.
You're still watching Football 360 here on Varsat 1. My name is Daniel Oduro, and I'm sitting in for your regular host, Nuti Fafata. We've been talking about the English Premier League. It started this weekend. Big results for some of the big teams. Manchester United getting off to a flying start, even though it was an own goal. But Chelsea and Arsenal stumbled in their quest to secure top 4 places. But it's early days yet. But our interest has been the Ghanaian contingent in the English Premier League. 3 of them, Andre Ayew, Jeffrey Schlupp, and Jordan Ayew, played for their respective clubs. Christian Achu could not make it, but there's also a potential deal that will bring Baba Rahman to the English Premier League. We'll look at some of the games in detail, and in the second half of the show, we'll dedicate our time to focus on the Ghana Premier League as heart of vogue, and some of the big clubs struggle to get out of the relegation dogfight. You can keep your comments coming through on our Facebook wall and our Twitter handle. Let's look at Baba Rahman's potential move to Chelsea and the fact that there's been a lot of talk that the gentleman is not really sure if he's going to get a starting position. You've seen Chelsea play, and a lot of people have said Ivanovic was a pale shadow of himself and age is catching up with him. And Rahman could potentially be a starter if he came to Chelsea and he and Aspilicueta swap places. Do you think the move should happen? And do you think it will be a good move for the
places? Yes, of course. I want the move to happen. I feel that you want to take the risk. He would know that he wants to walk straight into the Chelsea team. The quality they have in there, the fact that the team has not changed much from last season, the kind of hard work you see Aspilicueta and these other boys put in. You can't walk in there thinking that you've just been thrown the shirt.
Is he not good enough to start?
He is good enough. I do not think that to start him immediately, he would have to do a bit of understudy. Some time ago, Ashley Cole did not just walk into the team like that. You need to understudy.
But if you play in the German Bundesliga for 2-3 seasons, you should be ready for the English Premier League.
I know how it is for us to be emotional sometimes and say that our players are good enough. Of course, he's got a potential. Of course, he'll get a few good games in the FA Cups and the Carling Cups. But I don't expect him to actually lock down a place in the Premiership and play week in, week out. So if he got that move in to come there, it's not an expectation I would have. I would want to say that I won't be deceived by thinking that only because Morata was great yesterday and had Ivanovic for dinner all evening means that suddenly Baba Rahman would come in there and dislodge him. I don't know what people are smoking when they talk like that.
People think age is catching up with Ivanovic.
Age is catching up on him, and you got to know just after one game. I feel that last season he was one of the best players of Chelsea. Effective, he works hard, gets in the goals when it's really, really tough, and he is disciplined. I think it's really distinguished him, and I don't see how Mourinho would get up and decide to just discard him because a Barbara man who is not really tried and tested on the English soil in the Premier League walked in there. Getting Mourinho to even like him is a show of confidence for him to really say that I am going to work hard. I think he would be a project, a long-time project. But for everyone, Chelsea or Ghanaians expecting that he walk in there and suddenly he's playing week in and week out, I'm sorry, I do not think so.
Thierry, there are reports that the move has hit a snag because of the financial detail and that Chelsea are not willing to increase the €25 million offer. Do you think it puts the young man's head in a different place? He's got to focus on the German league that is about to start, and also think about the potential talk about him joining Chelsea. What is the best decision for him? Must he force a move to Chelsea?
Well, his representatives have actually been in the UK for like a week now.
Yeah.
So it tells you that they want the move to happen. Barbara Man, you know, probably is dreaming about playing for Chelsea already. And you know, when big clubs come chasing after you, when a manager like Jose Mourinho comes chasing after you, it turns your head. I mean, we've seen what is happening to De Gea at Manchester United. He might not have the best of games at you know, Augsburg if they know what's best for the club, especially as they have signed a direct replacement for him. I see no reason why they are still stalling.
I think they just want to cash in.
Exactly. You know, now they are holding out for, you know, 30 million euros. You know, Chelsea bidding 25 million euros. 5 million euros isn't too much, you know, to keep, you know, this harmony in your squad, in the dressing room. I think that if the player wants to move and if the buying club wants him, then it's best that you actually let him go. But for Barbara Man, you know, a lot of people have, you know, said, like Veronica is saying, that, you know, a lot of people are saying that, you know, he could just walk straight into the Chelsea first team because of Ivanovic's poor display last season. I think that's a bit uncalled for. That's a bit too sudden. That's a bit too quick. You know, yes, you may have your biases towards, you know, a Ghanaian playing the English Premier League. You would want him to improve the moment he gets in there. But for those who do not know, Ivanovic, when he was signed for Chelsea, was actually under Stedigan, you know, for a very long time. He was actually in the back room for like about two or three seasons until 2009. When Chelsea actually travelled to Anfield under Gus Hiddink, where he scored two-headed goals, if you remember, in the Champions League semi-final, quarter-final, and that was actually the turning point for Ivanovic. It takes time when you walk into, or when you get into a big club. I think that, yes, Veronica has said it all when she says that the fact that Jose Mourinho has shown some, want for you tells that you have great potential and he believes in you. And I think a lot of people may want to point to, Christian Atsu. Yeah. But yes, if you mention Christian Atsu, mention Michael Essien. I mean, if it's a fear that Ghanaians cannot excel at big clubs, then I'm giving you an example of a certain Ghanaian who excelled so high at a big club like Chelsea. He was, at the time, rated one of the best midfielders, all under Jose Mourinho. Yeah. If you think that Barbara Man is not good enough, look at his performance for the Black Stars. Look, for those who have not seen him play for Augsburg, and I'm sure they are the folks that are making a lot of noise about the fact that he may not necessarily be able to excel at Chelsea. If you've seen him play for Augsburg, the kind of performances that made him the best left back in the whole of Bundesliga, if the kind of performances that actually made him the 9th best by Opta, the 9th best young player in Europe, it tells you that he has bags of talent. Yeah. We just need some proper nurturing for him, and I think Jose Mourinho might be the right man. All right,
we'll wrap up on the English Premier League, but we cannot go without talking about Arsenal, and they recording the shocker of the weekend. Arsenal losing at home by 2-0 to West Ham. This season was the season many expected that Arsenal were going to challenge for the title. They brought in Peter Cech, and then surprisingly, it was Peter Cech's errors that led to 2 goals being scored against the Gunners. And they did it at home. Guys, when is Arsenal going to get it right?
Forget us now. The cycle is on. It's like this every season. The first few games are really bad. The pressure is on us, and get a striker, get a defender. Then suddenly they are winning again. The fluidity is there. It's looking good. Oh, we are winning the league again. until it's very important, and we are dropping the point, and we are like, Wenger out.
You know.
It's a cycle, and for me, the cycle is begun. You don't beat Chelsea in the Community Shield, give false hope, walk in there and play today as though you have monkeys standing at your back. It's exactly how they played. No sense of urgency in the game. They were really slow. If you still want to say that you are depending on Drew to win the championship, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're thinking, because he's not the kind of striker who will get you the results you need. I hear a lot of Arsenal fans saying that we need to sign people, and I'm almost asking, you need to sign different people to beat West Ham, a team you've beaten like the last 10 years, a team that, if you compare the players, are a whole lot better. You play so poorly to the extent that you decide that Sanchez can no longer have a little rest, which he really deserves, and you substitute him because he needs to bring the magic. Really?
Thierry, well, is Arsene Wenger at its wit's end? Has he come to the end of the road?
He has been in a long time. I don't know why they can't see.
Is he just a stubborn coach who has unwavering loyalty for some of the players who are really average players?
Well, I must tell you that every successful coach, every great coach in football is stubborn. It just depends on how stubborn you are. I mean, dating back from the 88s, when you had the likes of, Johan Cruyff, starting the Barcelona revolution, coming to recent times into, Sir Alex Ferguson regime. Sir Alex Ferguson left and his predecessor, those that succeeded him in David Moyes and Louis van Gaal have actually, struggled. It tells you that he was stubborn with how, he recruited. Some of the fans were actually not happy with some of the players that he brought in. And these are the same players that actually some of the new managers were actually struggling with. It tells you that he knew how to use them. And he was very stubborn in bringing the marquee players. He felt, I needed to grow my own players. I needed to bring up my own superstars. Let's move away from that. Let's come back to Arsene Wenger. I think Arsene Wenger is stubborn, yes. The Arsenal fans might have wanted him out a long time ago, but just a couple of seasons back, he won the FA Cup. Last season, he won the FA Cup again. And you will be thinking that maybe it was the start of a lot of things to come. Yeah, Arsenal won the treble this pre-season. They won the Asia Cup. They won the Conference.
Stop the sarcasm. Stop the sarcasm, okay?
Didn't Arsenal win the? Didn't Arsenal win the treble?
How is that a treble?
I think if you look at Arsenal,
the Asian tour and the Emirates Cup,
but that's for those who have been taunting Arsenal. But I mean, in reality, I think that Arsenal have too many players that play alike, especially in midfield. For a team that really thrives on their midfielders, I think they need some sort of
there is no leadership.
Exactly.
Leadership. There is no leadership in the team.
You see, the leadership Veronica will be looking at will be the leadership from the likes of Vieira. What they actually brought into the game. They really are missing that. I think that for a team that thrives on their midfield, they have too many players that look alike. The likes of Ramsey, Wilshere, Ozeo, Cazorla. They are too similar. If you really want to get goals, apart from getting goals from your midfield, your striking department is depleted. For me, Olivier Giroud...
Is it not too early to pass judgment on Arsenal?
You see, yes. You might say that it's too early, but what does precedence show us? Precedence tells us that when Arsenal start this way, they do not find their mojo quickly. And sometimes they get it around February when it's a bit too late, when the likes of Man City and the Chelseas and the Man United are really far ahead. And I think that when you look at Arsenal this season, yes, a lot of people would point to the fact that they brought in Peter Cech and all. He's not enough. They need a lot of steel in that centre of the park. Right. From the centre back, central midfield and the centre forward, I think they need more bodies in there. The kind of players they have, for me, they just don't cut it.
One team that started last season like Arsenal, Manchester United, this season they've started on a pretty good note, brought in some good quality.
On-goal note.
It doesn't matter, you get a 3 points. They want to start right. And do you think this is the season that Van Gaal will not have any excuses? He's brought in marquee players. He's been bold enough to sell their star player in Angel Di Maria. If he doesn't get it right at the end of the season, would it be the time to ask him?
I don't see how he's really able to win the league. I don't see how, regardless of all the players.
What would be the most
He should be happy
favorable?
to end up in the top 4, so he won't have to do a replay to play in the Champions League.
The playoff, you mean?
A playoff. I'm sure United will be very excited.
In Schneiderlin, in Schweinsteiger.
Schneiderlin is a great player. I look at Schweinsteiger and I feel that people shouldn't be
too excited
because he's injury prone. He walked into the game yesterday. A few seconds, he had a card because the atmosphere demanded he did something, and unfortunately, I didn't think he truly had his head well screwed on. If you look at the team, you would want to say that, yes, the midfield looks fearsome. If they move up front, we still have quality in there. But take another look at their defense yesterday. And Spurs will look back and say that we should have gotten something out of the game yesterday. United have every reason to be excited. Of course, their supporters get overexcited all the time, and we overexcited all the time. And we all know that Di Maria came and he was the Jesus Christ that was going to deliver the trophy. If I were them, I would learn from that. I do not think they still have what it takes to actually win the league, and they would have to relax.
Okay. Is it early to pass judgment already? We've had the first, opening day games, and you've seen all the big teams, the potential top 4 candidates. If you look at them, do you anticipate that there'll be a lot of movement in the transfer window as a result of the kind of performances some of them put up over the weekend?
It depends on the clubs. For clubs like Manchester United, we already know that they are in for quite a number of players this summer. They have brought in the likes of Memphis Depay, Schneiderlin, Schweinsteiger, and they are still looking to bring more. I mean, they've even brought in Romero, Pedro
looks
potentially.
Like
they need a centre back as well. So it tells you that they're not really done with their summer transfer activity. For a team like Arsenal, the likes of Benzema have been mentioned. As to how true those reports are, we are yet to know. But I'm struggling to see why and how Benzema would actually move from Real Madrid to Arsenal.
Because,
with all due respect to Arsenal, I think that, yes, he will not be getting as many games if Rafa Benitez decides to play, a certain Cristiano Ronaldo centre forward. But we do know what Benzema brings into a game. It could be just one game that would change the mind of Rafa Benitez.
And you think coming to Arsenal will be a downgrade for Benzema?
Yeah, obviously. You see. I remember when Jose Mourinho mentioned earlier this week.
So Ozil didn't think so when he moved for Real Madrid?
No, you see, that was because of assurances that he did not get when there was a change of manager, remember? But this is different.
So what it means is that if Benzema is not getting the same assurances, he could come to Arsenal, and it wouldn't be because he's downgrading it.
It does not mean that it was not a downgrade.
Okay. We've got to go for our first commercial break. My producer is my ear. We'll go for our first commercial break. We've been talking about the English Premier League and the Ghanaian interest in it. We'll return and talk about the Ghana Premier League and the struggle for survival for some of Ghana's illustrious and glamorous clubs. Yeah, welcome back from the break. You're still here on Football 360 with me, Daniel Oduro, sitting in for your regular host, Nutifafa Atta. I thought we had wrapped up on the English Premier League, but we've got one of our own. Sami Bartels is in the United Kingdom. He watched Andre Ayew live in action against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge yesterday, and he is going to bring us what he saw and what the talking points have been after such a fine display from the Black Stars vice captain. Sami, good evening and welcome to the show. Hi, Sami Bartels.
Hi, Thierry. I can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening. It's been a long time. How are you?
Well, it has been. I hope you guys are doing well.
We're doing well. The English Premier League started and there's keen interest, and I can tell you that Swansea has got a huge following now that Andre Ayew is playing for the Welsh club. But you watched Andre live at the Stamford Bridge. What did he bring to Swansea, and how big a player is he expected to become for Swansea as the season wears on?
Well, one thing I can tell you is that Chelsea fans weren't too happy with the role that Andre played yesterday in their inability to win their first match of the season. I was with the fans all the way before they entered the stadium, and you could see that they had bigger expectations for that particular match. But then also they were mindful of what Swansea are capable of doing because of how they have caused upset in the last few seasons. But on Andre particularly, I think he has cemented his place in the hearts of Swansea supporters. Yesterday, they were doting on him after the game and after the goal that he scored. And I think for the first time we heard them chant his name, which is good because that was his first game. But the truth is that he started rather slowly and sluggishly. He had very interesting battles with Aspilicueta on the right hand side of the attack, which is the left hand side of the Chelsea defense. And so at the beginning, you could tell he was struggling with the pace because a lot of times when he was second to balls and then the balls got nicked off him, Aspilicueta picked his pocket a few times. But then, gradually he warmed into the game, and perhaps the turning point was when he scored the goal. And for everybody who watched that goal demonstrated everything that Andre Ayew stands for, which is persistence and hard work and determination, and also his aerial ability, because it all culminated in that particular goal that he scored. And once he scored that goal, you could see he was playing with more freedom, and he was bolder, and he moved into more attacking areas. Whereas before the goal, he was more restricted. And the reception has been quite well. Generally, they have scored him above average for most of the player ratings that have come out. The Daily Mail, for instance, scored him as a 7 and described him as a real prospect for Swansea this season. And obviously, they are hoping to improve that performance from the previous season. And he will be key to that now that he's like having settled into the English game.
I don't know if you had the chance to speak to Andre, but they say you are only as good as your next show. Do you think that he getting a fine debut will put pressure on him, or you think he's going to thrive on the confidence of scoring a first goal and improve and get better as the season goes on?
Well, what I can say is that generally here in England, a good start is always important. Because when you fail to make a good start, that is when the pressure is on you and people begin to ask questions. Because there's generally a view here, which sometimes people describe as prejudicial, that players who come from the continent struggle when they come here because of the pace and all that. But it didn't take him matches to adapt. It took him just, within a particular match to adapt. So I don't think it will come with greater expectations, but not exactly with pressure. And we are talking about the Ayew here. He's had to deal with pressure all his life, and I think the timing is right because he's reached a certain level of maturity that will allow him to deal with the pressure that comes with playing for a team like Swansea. And I say that Swansea is a very shrewd move because it's not as if he's playing in a top 16. This is a team that finished, is it 8th last season? So it's pretty much a mid-table team, and anything beyond 8th position will be a plus for them. And so, yesterday he said that it's not so much about him scoring on his debut, but it's about the team performing well and getting a point. And for me, that captures it because he's that kind of player. One of the most astonishing things was yesterday seeing Dede doing what you see him do for the Black Stars. Screaming at his colleagues, trying to organize them, and we would see this throughout because that's the kind of player he is. And I think he could hit the ground running. And in the weeks to come, we'll see him develop further as a player playing here in the English Premiership. And, once you are able to do it at the Champions venue, and I'll tell you, yesterday, the Chelsea fans, they are generally not the best at singing, but, they kept raining down words on the Swansea players. And if you're able to deal with this pressure at Stamford Bridge, you can deal with the pressure anywhere else in the country.
All right, let's talk about the other Ghanaian players who played yesterday and over the weekend. Jordan Ayew didn't have an impressive debut, but Jeffrey Schlupp was at his usual best and picked up from where he left off last season. What's been the major talking point about the gradual influx of Ghanaian players in the EPL?
Well, there hasn't exactly been a talking point about specifically Ghanaian players. The truth is that the press here hardly pay attention to these kind of nuanced subjects like Ghanaian players influx, but generally they will look at a bigger picture. The bigger picture is that mid-table teams here in England have managed to recruit some of the best talent from European leagues. Normally, some of these best talents rather end up at the top 6 or top 8 clubs. But for the first time in a while, you have somebody like Wijnaldum, who together with Depay was perhaps the best players in the Netherlands, coming in here. You have Jordan Ayew, a very bright prospect from France, coming to Aston Villa. You have Dede Ayew, one of the brightest prospects in mainland Europe, coming to play for Swansea, which is not a top team. So it's generally that trend that you have a group of very young, dynamic and promising players on the continent who have come here. And I think, it will be up to the Ghanaians among them to step up to the plate. And And for Jordan particularly, I think he has a lot more work to do because his brother has established himself in a way that makes him more comfortable here. But he, Jordan, really has a point to prove. And it's our expectation that because he finds himself at a club that has a coach who has brought up a lot of young players in the last couple of years, perhaps it would see him, find his mojo, so to speak, here in England and do well. But it was a rather slow start for him. And it's difficult to compare Jordan's start to somebody like Schlupp because Schlupp is a player made in England. And he knows the system, and he's played through lower leagues, and he's come here. So he's rather very comfortable. And I think from the reports coming out of Leicester, he's somebody that Claudio Ranieri is very comfortable with and is making an integral part of the team.
All right.
Jordan, on the other hand, needs to fight because there are other attackers who have come into the team. He's playing in a different league. He's only shown potential. He's not actually achieved anything. And so he faces the fight to really, establish himself at Aston Villa and get his career back on track. Also because he's the son of a legend, and the sons of legends always carry this weight of expectations on them.
All right, Sammy,
so I think
we've got to leave it here. I'm sure now that the league has started, we'll be touching base a lot more often so that we can give our viewers in-depth analysis of the performance of Ghanaian players in the English Premier League. That's Sammy Bartels, a sports journalist, and now a lawyer who's studying in the United Kingdom, and he brought us his perspective. He watched Andre Ayew live at Stamford Bridge as he scored his debut goal for Swansea in the English Premier League. Let's now switch attention to the Ghana Premier League, the First Capital Plus Premier League. And we're in the final home stretch. We've got 3 matches to the end of the season, and some big clubs are still in the relegation dogfight. Hearts of Oak momentarily have moved out of the relegation zone, but they are only 1 point above the relegation zone. Guys, a lot of talk has gone on about the machinations that are going to be done to ensure that Hearts of Oak and some of the big clubs survive. Do the results in the last few weeks confirm that there's a grand scheme to ensure that Hearts of Oak doesn't go to relegation?
It is fair to have your suspicions, but against Liberty they played well. Against Bichim United today, Bichim themselves aren't doing very well, and have come under a lot of pressure from the likes of Mohamed Polo and others, calling these players a disgrace, asking that if the team sinks, if the team do not survive relegation, they will go down in history as a bunch of disgrace. If you are a player, you really want to respond beyond the machinations, beyond the tone thing that you are expecting. I think what they have done is to respond, because you can have all the machinations. If you don't go to the pitch and respond and do well and play and make an effort, then it's as good as zero. And I think they have responded well because they have come out of that perception that we cannot be relegated because we are Hearts of Oak, because they have flirted with relegation throughout the season, and suddenly the reality is that if we don't work hard, we will go. Asante Kotoko took their own destiny into their hands. And if you look at beating Ash Gold needed that match to make sure that they would almost say we are home and dry, winning our first trophy in 22 years. They couldn't have gone in there thinking of regional balance or regional friendship and just thrown that game. Beyond that, they came to Accra with all their problems with armed robbery and that. You saw that on the field that day against Hearts of Oak, they were the better side. They needed to get to safety, and they proved that. The last 3 games that they have won, they gave everything. So the machinations would come all right. But some teams, if you look at Great Olympics, they get a draw today, they win tomorrow, and the next day is a different story. It would always be down to quality and a few other things. So imagine if the machination says that give us 3 penalties and you don't even find your way in the penalty box. It doesn't happen. So you want to give some of these clubs and the players some credit because some have worked for it.
We'll go for our second commercial break and we'll return and talk about the Ghana Premier. We've got about 5 minutes to check out of the studio, and we're still talking about the biggest football event over the weekend. A bit of banter going on social media, Twitter, and Aminu Shadow, a colleague journalist who works with Ghana Soccer, says, so, Sister Vero, you say Man United fans get overexcited.
Of course they get overexcited. We went to the World Cup. Luis Van Gaal just made a substitution for Crew to come in, save a penalty.
Okay, Francis
and suddenly
says
they had won the
your
World
team
Cup.
has not achieved half of what Manchester United
Oh, please,
has
please,
achieved.
please, spare us.
So,
I mean, it took Manchester United 20 years to topple Liverpool.
Tell them.
He should spare us all that
talk
talk.
about the Ghana Premier League. And Thierry, there's still a lot of danger for some of the big clubs. Heart of Oak are still not safe. Heart of Lions are deep in the relegation, and you've got New York and you've got Great Olympics. Which clubs
I
do
think
you
the only
tip?
teams that are really safe would be Adriana Stars and Ashgo.
Yeah.
Because yes, I was coming to that because when you look at the league log, the difference between the third, fourth, and fifth place, being Wafa, Kotoko also in sixth. When you look at that position, Kotoko have 39 points.
Yes.
Hearts, who surprisingly are just 1 point above the relegation zone,
have
35 points.
Okay.
So that means that from the relegation zone to sixth, it's just about 5 points.
4 points.
4 points.
Really.
And it tells you what exactly has the league become very competitive. So if you're a team bottom, BA United are obviously long gone. But when you are in Olympics, when you are a Bicham, when you're Hearts of Lions, you know very well that the season is just about ending, but not ended. Every point is very crucial to every team now. I mean, it took just 2 wins for Hearts of Oak to just climb off the relegation zone.
Just 2 wins.
Just 2 wins. After suffering the whole season.
Okay.
They couldn't maintain 2 successive points for how many
Heart of
months?
Oak in the last couple of days, they've picked up 6 points, beating Liberty Professionals, and this afternoon they beat Bicham United. So the battle to survive the relegation is still on for Heart of Oak, and many have said it's almost impossible for Heart of Oak to be relegated. But we've seen it happen in other countries. Juventus were even demoted to the lower tier, so nothing is impossible. My producer says we've got to talk about the Airtel Rising Stars, which is the grassroots football competition that Airtel, the network provider, has been sponsoring over the years. It's been unearthing talents all over the countries, and it adds education to talent. And so we've got some footage of some of the competition around the country, and we'll bring you excerpts of that.
The 2015 Airtel Rising Stars competition is off to a flyer. Sekondi Takrady hosted the first zonal games involving players. Dubbed the most credible and authentic football talent hunt in Ghana, Airtel Rising Stars is jointly organized by the Ghana Football Association and the smartphone network Airtel. So the games were as tough and the goals were many. In the end, Western Regions Team B triumphed with 5 points, beating Central Regions Team A to second place with 4 points, while Western Team A picked up the bronze. Airtel Rising Stars is the only tournament in Africa which emphasizes both male and female teams, and yet again, the Western female team triumphed over their Central Regional adversaries. Ernestina Hooper was adjudged the best female player of the tournament, while Steven Texan
Okay, so that was Airtel Rising Stars ongoing all over the country. I'm sure the grand finale will be held somewhere later in the year. It's been an amazing show. I've enjoyed every bit of it. Thanks for the pleasure of your company, and thanks to my guests Veronica Commey and Thierry Nyann, who have been doing the discussion. We're back same time next week, God willing, with another edition of the show. Thanks to the entire crew, the lighting, sound, the makeup artists, and everybody, and thanks to you. We're back tomorrow. Thierry, your show is on tomorrow. So do make a date with Thierry as we bring you the highlights. If you are an Arsenal fan, you don't want to watch. My name is Daniel Oduro. I'll see you somewhere in town. Bye.